Good morning, boys and girls. We talked about polygons yesterday, and today we are working with triangles. Your I can statement is I can identify triangles by their sides and angles. So what we're going to do is first talk about how you can identify triangles by their sides, then by their angles. Then we're going to practice identifying triangles by their sides and by their angles. It'll make a lot more sense once we jump into it. So there are three types of triangles when you're talking about the side lengths. The first is an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle has three congruent sides. The word congruent means same, and so that means it has three sides that are the same length. Before I get any further, remember that our lines, like we see on this triangle, if there's one line on all of our sides, that means they're the same length. If this line had one, this line had two, and this line had three lines, that means none of them are the same length, right? Only sides with the same number of lines have the same length. Okay, and remember this set of notes is on your assignment for today if you want to print them out and follow along with me. So equilateral has three congruent sides. Isosceles triangles have two congruent sides, which means two of their sides are the same length. So that would look like two sides having one line and one side having two lines. Then a scalene triangle has no congruent sides. So there are no congruent sides on a scalene triangle. So just to review really quickly, equilateral has three congruent sides, isosceles has two congruent sides, and scalene has no congruent sides. So that would look like one line, two lines, and three lines to show you that each side is a different length. Now we're going to talk about how you can identify a triangle by their angles. And if you remember, the angle yesterday is the measure of the degrees inside the two, where the two lines meet. So where the two lines meet is the vertice, and then the measure from one line to another is the angle. Okay, so an acute angle or acute triangle has three angles less than 90 degrees. That means that all three of the angles are less than 90 degrees. If you have a right triangle, it has one 90-degree angle. One 90-degree angle. Do you know how you can tell if it is a 90-degree angle? That's right, guys. It has that little square in the corner, and I'll show you in just 1 second. An obtuse triangle has one angle that is greater than 90 degrees. So an obtuse triangle has one of its angles that is greater than 90 degrees. Now let me show you really quickly. This angle is a right angle, and I would show you by putting a little square in the corner, and that is how you represent a right angle, okay? Now let's practice with this triangle that you see right here on the screen, and then you're going to practice on your assignment, okay? Our type of triangle by sides. That means we're going to look at our by side and decide what type of triangle is this. Well, those one lines tell me that all three of my sides are equal. So I know that this is an equilateral triangle. And that is by side. But now I need to identify it by the angle. If you remember, this represents 90 degrees. Obtuse is bigger than 90 degrees, and acute is smaller than 90 degrees. So think of it this way. You have an acute angle, a right angle, and an obtuse angle, right? Acute is small, right is 90, and obtuse is bigger. You can always do it with your arms or just your little hands as well, okay? So let's look at these angles. Those are some pretty small angles, right? They're not quite 90 degrees, and we don't have that little square in the corner to show us that it's 90 degrees. That means that those small angles tell us that this is an acute triangle. So we're just going to put right here, acute triangle. And we'll actually look at one more together really quickly. This triangle right here, it doesn't have any lines to show us that any sides are the same, which tells us that it is a scalene triangle. So this would be a scalene triangle if we were identifying it by the side. And if we were looking at the angles, it doesn't have any right angles and it doesn't have any large angles. So it is actually also a acute triangle. I'll show you this triangle really quick. This is a right triangle, and you can tell because it has that little square in the corner. If you have any questions about today's lesson or assignment, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and don't forget to do that Wiser assignment right below this video.